She thought she was just showing kindness. One simple sandwich handed to a man she believed was homeless. But by the next morning, flashing lights, shouting officers, and a crowd at her doorstep turned her small act of compassion into something far bigger and far darker than she could have ever imagined. Why would the police come looking for her? And what shocking truth was hiding behind the man she tried to help? It was a quiet afternoon in the city. Aaliyah, a hardworking teenager with dreams bigger than her small neighborhood, had just finished her shift at the corner cafe. She wasn't rich, she wasn't powerful, just a girl with a kind heart, heading home the same way she always did. Her backpack was light, but her mind was heavy with thoughts of school, family, and the future. Then, just a few blocks away, she noticed a man sitting alone on the sidewalk. His clothes were torn, his face tired. Most people passed without a glance. But Aaliyah paused. Something in her heart told her not to look away. What she didn't realize was that this single moment of compassion would place her in the middle of a storm she never saw coming. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a small act of kindness. Aaliyah pulled the sandwich from her bag and handed it to the man. His hands trembled as he accepted it, his eyes searching hers with a mix of gratitude and something else, something she couldn't quite place. He nodded, whispered, "Thank you," and for a moment, she felt a quiet warmth. She had done the right thing. But the next morning, that warmth turned to ice. Sirens pierced the early dawn. Red and blue lights flashed against her window. When Aaliyah opened the door, 3 police officers stood waiting, their faces hard, their voices sharp. "Are you Aaliyah Johnson?" one of them demanded. Her heart pounded. She nodded, confused. "You need to come with us." Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains as whispers spread through the street. Aaliyah's mother pleaded for answers, but the officers offered none. Instead, they placed their hands on their belts, their tone dripping with suspicion, as if this young girl had done something criminal. At the station, the questions began, rapid, aggressive, relentless. Why had she spoken to that man? Did she know who he was? What had she given him? Aaliyah stammered, her voice trembling. "It was just a sandwich. I thought he was hungry." But the officers exchanged glances, shaking their heads. One leaned closer, his words cold. "That wasn't just some homeless man. You have no idea who you were dealing with." Aaliyah's world tilted. Fear wrapped itself around her chest. Why would giving food to someone matter so much? And why were they treating her like a suspect instead of a child who cared? Hours dragged on. They kept her in a cold room, leaving her with nothing but the echo of their accusations. The more she explained, the less they seemed to listen. To them, her kindness was suspicious, her motives twisted. Every word she spoke was treated like a lie. And then, another layer of fear. She overheard 2 officers talking outside the door. "Can you believe, TH?" The truth came crashing down in the most unexpected way. Days after the interrogation, Aaliyah was summoned again. This time not to a cold police room, but to a courthouse crowded with cameras and reporters. She stepped inside, her stomach twisting, unsure why her name was being dragged into the spotlight. And then she saw him. The man she had fed, the one she thought was homeless, now stood in a crisp suit, flanked by attorneys. Gasps rippled through the crowd as his identity was revealed. Not a beggar, but a millionaire businessman, someone with power, influence, and wealth beyond imagination. But instead of gratitude, instead of acknowledging her kindness, he pointed directly at her. "That's the girl," he said, his voice cutting through the air. "She gave me something. She tried to take advantage of me." The room erupted. Aaliyah froze, her heart hammering. Every eye locked on her. Reporters scribbled, cameras flashed, and whispers turned to judgment. In that instant, her act of compassion was twisted into a weapon against her. Her voice cracked as she tried to defend herself. "It was just food. I was just trying to help." But the noise drowned her out. Officials nodded gravely, as if her word carried no weight. To them, she was just another black girl to be doubted, her truth erased by the powerful man standing before her. Tears burned in her eyes, but deeper than the tears was rage. Rage of being silenced, at being painted as the villain for nothing more than kindness. She realized this was bigger than her. This was about every moment people like her were made invisible, unheard, and unprotected. The courtroom held its breath as the judge leaned forward, ready to deliver a ruling that could destroy her future or expose a truth the world wasn't ready to face. And in that suspended moment, Aaliyah understood. This wasn't just about her act of compassion. It was about whether justice could survive in a world stacked against her. The ruling came down, and though Aaliyah wasn't charged with a crime, the damage had already been done. Her reputation had been dragged through the mud, her kindness twisted into suspicion, and her voice nearly erased under the weight of power and prejudice. She walked out of that courtroom free, but not untouched. Every step felt heavier. Every glance from strangers carried a judgment she hadn't earned. Yet something inside her had shifted. She realized that her story wasn't just her own. What happened to her was part of a pattern, a system where truth can be silenced, where compassion can be weaponized, and where the color of your skin too often decides whether you are believed or condemned. Aaliyah chose not to stay silent. She began speaking out, sharing her story, reminding anyone who would listen that kindness should never be treated as a crime. Her courage sparked conversations in her community, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about racism, privilege, and power. But the scars remained. Even in her bravery, she carried the memory of flashing lights outside her home, the cold stares of officers, and a crushing moment when her truth was nearly erased. And so, this story lingers, not just as a tale of one girl, but as a mirror reflecting the society we live in. How many more Aaliyahs must be questioned, doubted, or silenced before things change? How many more acts of kindness will be twisted into threats simply because of who offers them? The question isn't whether injustice exists. We see it, we feel it, we live it. The real question is, what will we do about it?